Here we go. You know what's going down, right? Like that. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. This panel is called Disrupting the Music Industry. However, I was thinking, you guys are young, you're just starting out your journey, and this is going to be your music industry. This is not going to be a disruption for you. This is going to be your reality. So really, maybe we should have called it Creating the Music Industry that you guys will probably get involved with and further. So I have an interesting job. I work at a music tech PR firm, and I get to read about and write about music and music tech all day long. And I'm really excited to introduce you to these three panelists who all deal with what we could call decentralized technology in the music space. And we'll get into exactly what that is, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Just wanted to say I got my start in music as a record store clerk back when that was kind of a thing. And I wish you guys all the best, and I'm looking forward to your awesome questions. And that was in St. Louis, in case anyone cares. All right, so let me introduce our three panelists here. We have, I'm going to go in alphabetical order by last name. We have Fabian Alsultany, who is with Bitfury Surround. We have Clayton Blaha, who is joining us from Audius, and we have Bruno Guez, who is going to be audio only because it's late where Bruno is right now. Bruno is the founder of Relevator. So in order of introduction, would you guys just spend a minute talking about how your career in music got started and how it brought you to music tech and blockchain specifically?
Sure, I could start that since we're going in alphabetical order. I got into music since I was a little kid. And it evolved from being the kid that put on the talent show to being in bands to eventually going to college and being in bands, putting on concerts, managing bands, ultimately working at record labels. One record label I worked at with Bruno was we're working for Chris Blackwell over at Palm Pictures. I haven't spoken to Bruno in 15 years, so what's up, Bruno? And
Hello.
Yep, and then all of that progressed into being a booking agent, running music festivals. And ultimately, I got into the blockchain space because around 2015, I started buying Bitcoin and Ethereum and making money off of it, and was like, what the hell is all of this? Dug into it and learned it, figured out what it was supposed to be doing, started writing up different business plans for different applications for usage within the blockchain industry. Got my first blockchain gig as a head of business development for a company called R-Chain, which at that time was valued at about $900 million. And we did a lot of great work over there. And while that was happening, got poached by this company that I presently work for called Bitfury Surround, which is an asset management and commerce platform for intellectual property for music. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but what it ultimately leads into is that back in the old days when you'd release a CD, or even in the days of just selling MP3s, there's ways of collecting data. And but when that data comes in and money lands in the bank account, a bunch of accountants and lawyers show up to start figuring out how that money will be distributed. The future of the music industry, which most young people will be able to participate in, will allow for when a song is put out there, you'll enter into it. I wrote the song with my buddy. This person wrote the lyrics. This person did the guitar parts. Here's all the metadata, and here's all the splits, and here's the history from the concept of the song living on voice and piano all the way to a finalized, produced, finished, distributed master. And the magic of blockchain, which all three of us are doing in our different ways, but underlying the trying to solve the same problem, is allowing for those that own a piece of the song to get paid on time, properly, into a digital wallet. So that's my basic story.
Awesome. That was a great overview. It's a lot to absorb at once, but we'll get back to some of those bits and pieces along the way. Clayton, do you want to give everyone an intro into your career and how you got to be part of Audius?
Yeah, I'm head of partnerships at Audius. Started out, I'm a skateboarder from Idaho. I've kind of discovered rap music through skate videos early on. Moved to San Francisco to explore the potential of working in the music industry or the professional skateboarding industry. Ended up falling into a music tech job to pay the bills, where I was manually tagging rap music and creating data sets for a company that would later be acquired by Pandora. So my recommendations still inform, or my data still informs recommendations on the Music Genome Project. On the sidelines, while doing that, I began writing about rap music for Thrasher Skateboard magazine, and realized that the publicist that was sending me press releases was essentially doing the same thing, only making more money. They were just writing about rap music for a living. So I chased down a woman who would later go on to be my mentor. Her name's Catherine Frazier. She introduced me to an artist that Atlantic had asked us to work on named Skrillex. Within about a year, or within about 6 months of working with him as his publicist, he asked me to co-found his record label. So I did that. Moved to Los Angeles, started this publishing company for him, started my own management company where I was managing a rapper from Compton named Westside Boogie. And then I realized that artists from different backgrounds are often treated very differently. And it was a harrowing and slightly disgusting experience watching a human and his art and his story be brokered as a commodity. I had decided that I was going to probably step back from the traditional music industry in about 2017 because I didn't know if there was a way to make it better or at least like incrementally less evil. And then somebody introduced Ethereum to me, which I immediately recognized smart contracts as a very, very real solution set for just about everything that I had identified as fundamentally against my personal beliefs within music. So yeah, Ethereum, the Internet of Fairness, led me to consulting with William Morris Endeavor, where I told their clients about, they're one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. And I was one of the first people to tell people in that building about how this technology would disrupt their business and how it could be actually made a lot of their functions more efficient. That led me to head of innovation at 360, who manages Calvin Harris and Will Smith, as well as Tiesto and a bunch of other people. There, I was a partner, an advisor and a partner of Tune, the first streaming platform on the blockchain. And then in the market downturn, Audius probably very rightly understood that I was looking to leave, and they came down and poached me. So we launched in 2019. Audius looks like SoundCloud, feels like SoundCloud, but it's totally decentralized. We have crossing 6.2 million monthly active users pretty soon, and we're the largest decentralized consumer platform in the world.
And the cool thing about Audius is basically it ends up that the artists and fans on the platform own the platform and can make to a certain extent can make decisions about what happens on the platform in terms of what gets developed next and all that cool stuff. Anyway,
That's right.
just wanted to add that because I love that about Audius. Okay, and Bruno,
Yep.
last but definitely not least, why don't you give us a bit of your musical background and how it led you deeper into the music tech and blockchain space?
Sounds good. So my name is Bruno Guez. I'm the founder and CEO of Relevator. I got to develop Relevator as a byproduct of me running a record label for 2 decades and not wanting to do that anymore. So, I loved signing bands and developing talent. I signed a group called 07 about 20 years ago and did, really well with that. You probably remember some of that music. Sia was the voice that came out of 07. But I started my record label at the age of 23. I got signed by Chris Blackwell to Island Records as an indie label, and then that kind of started a 2-decade-long journey working in the industry and working alongside Chris. Watched the space go from analog to digital, from download to streaming. I was early to digital as early as 2001, 2, 3, already having our own deals with Apple at that time. So I learned, firsthand all the problems, of digital around metadata and distribution and reporting and royalties and all the mess that it was. This was kind of before cloud, if you think about it. So, when cloud technologies came along, in the early 2000s, I started being an early adopter to that and trying to figure out ways that we could easily, streamline processes so that we could run a more efficient record label, with technology and less people. So up until about 2010, we developed quite a great platform, which became really the prototype of Relevator. And I lived in LA at the time. I had a radio show on KCRW for 7 years, and during those years, it's like I was definitely fascinated by technology and how it was changing the music industry. But 10 years later, I moved to Israel, and I was like, okay, well, now I don't have 10 people running the label anymore. I need a technology solution to really make it possible to run the label by myself. And that was really the impetus and the reason why I started developing technology. Initially, B2B and B2B2C technologies. And being in Israel, starting in 2010 was an amazing opportunity to watch, blockchain and decentralized technologies, and obviously moving into ICOs in 2016, 17, 18 until crypto winter came along. But what was interesting at
And
the point,
just to add, I'm sorry, Bruno, sorry to interrupt, but an ICO is an initial coin offering. And so that was one of the early ways that people were using crypto-like technologies to get in other ways besides cryptocurrency. Is that
as,
okay? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure everyone knew about that.
as early as 2015, I was already kind of running experiments on the Colored Coins protocol, trying to figure out how to deal with, metadata on chain. And I wasn't quite impressed yet. I love smart contracts, but it wasn't quite mature enough until about 2018. And I realized, okay, now we've got a viable, a container, coding for managing rights on chain. So we started developing a wallet, non-custodial wallet, which is now called the Artist Wallet. Been at it for about 3 years. You can do a lot of really cool things like creating smart contracts with a very simple, user interface. You don't need to deploy code. You don't need to understand anything about blockchain. You can just figure out how to, create a contract and manage your splits and rights holders. And we tried to really abstract away a lot of the complexities and make it really user friendly. And I thought that was one of the most important things because, even having a wallet and managing your private keys and a lot of that stuff is really complex and most people don't really understand it. So we focused around initially developing a smart contract platform and a digital wallet on top and kind of bringing that back into the Relevator platform, which deals with, income tracking and supply chain digital distribution to Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all the major online platforms. And today that platform serves, close to 150,000 rights holders. And, it's processed close to $100 million in royalties over the last 5 years. But now getting all those royalties on chain was kind of my big mission. And part of that was, now we have a digital wallet, we've got the Relevator platform, we can bridge the two and kind of be a bridge to Web3 and start moving some of those royalties and rights information on chain. So we've been at this for a couple of years doing that. And what's really important to me now is really just accelerating payments because I just hate the fact that it takes so long for people to get paid. And artists are usually the first to create and usually the last to get paid. And I'm trying to kind of change that by basically using the consumption data that comes from streaming platforms, estimating the near-term royalty and making that money available to the digital wallet as an advance, basically. And
Yeah,
that's what we're working on.
that is such an important first step. So just for everyone listening, you guys may already know this, but the music industry settles in different cycles. PROs often take, it's quarterly. Sometimes record labels are, once every half year. And the MLC, for example, is doing it monthly. And what Bruno and some other folks working with blockchain are proposing is let's do it every day. So it's a big step forward for artists. Anyway, we need to make sure we have all our pieces in place before we start answering questions and going a little bit deeper. So I would love for each of you to talk. First of all, we need to talk about why what we're talking about here is not the same as cryptocurrency. And I would love for each person to talk a little bit about the technology you use on your platform or with your service, and what it's called, what exactly it does, and a tiny little bit about how it works, just in 1 minute each, if you could. So let's start with you, Clayton, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, it would be unwise to say that our company does not deal with cryptocurrency. We have one of the top 100 in terms of trading volume cryptocurrencies on CoinGecko right now. It's called Audio. But it's best not to think of that as monetization, and I'm prevented from suggesting that it ever have any US dollar value, though speculators feel otherwise in many cases. The token is meant to represent ownership of the platform. It's an ERC-21 token built on Ethereum. Soon it will be, we are also migrating to Solana. That's public knowledge, so try not to leak anything too spicy here. But the token in the audio token rather, allows governance of the platform, like Trista alluded to, which means that for a fairly sophisticated user, there are governance proposals with weighted voting based on holdings of the token. Most interestingly, for artists, the token can be earned by performing healthy network behavior on the platform, like having a trending track, uploading music, sharing music with a certain link, curating a playlist. These kinds of things there's micro implementation of these right now, but we're ramping this up. essentially the idea is that artists earn tokens, and as they accumulate certain amounts of token holdings, unlock features on platform that allow them to have an enriched fan experience. So like maybe all this is none of this is like actually being implemented right now, but it's what's being built or we're building towards. Like, for example, if you hold 1,000 tokens, you'll be able to comment on somebody's track. If you hold 5,000 tokens, you'll be able to DM with your favorite artists. If you're holding 10,000 tokens, you'll be able to set up fan club monetization for USDC, which actually allows you to make money by putting some certain content on the platform behind a paywall. Those are all the kinds of things that create value around the token for artists. And then there's also a lot of crypto economic stuff involving staking and network security that's a little bit more robust. I'm happy to send links to anybody that's interested.
Great. And Bruno, tell us a little bit about Relevator and Original Works and your wallet and how all that works, and how are you using blockchain to make this happen?
Sure. So we understand, that most rights holders today, get paid, on a quarterly basis or maybe 60-day cycle from DSPs, right? Whether you're working with, artist direct platforms like CD Baby or DistroKid and so on. Reporting monthly, usually another delay of 30 days or so before you get paid. So at best, independents get paid 60 days. We're trying to bridge the funding gap from the time the song plays to the time the contract pays out, and trying to kind of bring that as a daily payment cycle on chain through a digital wallet. So Original Works is really the protocol and the platform that kind of handles all of the Web3, layer, if you wish. And we have different assets. We have what we call an asset token, which is a song. We take a song, we tokenize it. It becomes a digital asset. You can do that easily from the Relevator platform. Take your phone, your wallet, scan a QR code, and now your song has become a digital asset, which is an ERC20 token, and it's extended with functionality that works on our protocol. The payments happen through a stable coin. So we basically try to keep the value of royalties to be the same as they are on fiat currencies. We don't want currency, royalties to go up and down, 5 or 10 or 20% overnight or anything like that. So there's always going to be a one-to-one relationship between $1 of iTunes or Spotify to $1 in a settlement of royalties that you've earned. And we basically mint and burn, the tokens based on the issuance and redemption of royalties. So we've got a way of kind of understanding, okay, you've got $10,000 of royalties coming to you. So you've got 10,000, stablecoin owned coins in your wallet. And the moment you want to cash out, we just kind of, redeem it and kind of cash it out for, whatever currency you want, whether it's crypto or fiat. So the important thing is really understanding that we already have a, digital distribution and royalties platform that's got active users, that's got, plenty of royalty flows for people around the world. And now we're trying to kind of help them earn money faster, cash out on their royalties faster by kind of bridging those two registered assets on chain and cashing out on their royalties directly. That's available in their wallet. What's interesting is if like the four of us right now are participants in a smart contract, each one of us can take out an advance against our pro rata share of the rights. So if there's $10,000 on a daily basis of royalties that are going to be due in 60 days, each one of us could take out 25% if that's what the participation is in the smart contract. And we don't have to manage any of that. All the smart contracts are basically collateralizing the micro loan or the advance and automating the loan repayment based on the royalty settlement at the end of the period.
That's awesome, and it's also awesome that we're earning so much money together, guys. We've done a good job. All right, thank you, Bruno. That was really helpful. And Fabian, can you explain your model at Surround works a little bit differently, and it does involve some of the elements of what Bruno's talking about, and a little bit of what Clayton was talking about with Audius. So, can you explain how Surrounds works?
Sure. I think on the asset management side, very similar to what Relevator is doing, we're able to allow for financial distributions to take place for that piece of digital intellectual property to all the stakeholders. And that goes from the musicians, the songwriters, the publishers, the labels, everyone that gets embedded and written into the smart contract. And that's what we do. That's what we're building towards, is that platform will launch in Q1 of 2022. Outside of that, that's the management of intellectual property. And then there's a commerce platform, which is, here are my songs, here's my stems, here's my NFT, here's a bunch of different digital things that I own that are living in my digital wallet, in my digital vault, so to speak. And all of those assets have rules attached to it. And the ability to be able to distribute that through a variety of dApps that will live in our app store will allow for the artist or the owner of that piece of intellectual property, be that 5% or 100%, they'll be able to track it and see money show up in their digital wallet on a regular basis, depending upon the accounting practices of those partners that are involved with that asset. So, the accounting practices over at Spotify are different than those that they would be over at ASCAP, or those that would be over on Amazon. And depending upon the negotiations that take place there, as well as with the labels, there's different streams of when the money will come in. The likelihood of $10,000 a day would be a revelation. But if we're able to get every 30 days, money's coming in from the different parties, staggered throughout the month, that is the ultimate goal. That way, when an artist releases a song, every 30 days, they can start receiving a paycheck for their monies. And it could be every 2 weeks, but it seems to think the 30-day model, according to the accounting practices that are embedded into most of the DSPs, is the way this is all going to roll out as time progresses.
So we're talking about what's going on now, and as you can hear, it's evolving really quickly. I think everyone has hinted at, we're going to be doing this, the future is this is like the roadmap, etc. How do you think, gentlemen, this new technology is going to shape how people make music and the kind of music people make, and how people listen to, enjoy music? Let's see, who goes first this time? Bruno, can you, what do you, on the creator, you can pick a side if there's one you feel more confident in speaking to, but what do you think?
On the creative side, what excites me the most is, producers, writers, performers, artists being in the same space together, working, collaborating, recording, or it could be around the world. It doesn't really matter, where they're co-creating. And now they actually have a digital wallet where they can say, hey, here's a contract, here's your share, and we can actually transfer or assign shares to each other and kind of record our participation and our contribution directly on a contract and record that on the ledger. And we have, a living proof of our, participation in that recording or musical work or whatever it is we did together. And that's the first part, is just really capturing the rights so that we have, an authoritative and source of truth as to who did what the moment it happened, as opposed to trying to come back to it months later and argue over who did what, or even just, have our publishers and labels kind of fight over, fairness in terms of participation. So the first part is really being able to capture all the rights on chain. Once you have that, you can start posting financial transactions against those contracts and start to kind of move money to the right participation, and participants much faster. What I do like is the notion of influencers being participants in a smart contract in exchange for work, which would be promoting my songs, putting my song on a playlist, or putting it in front of their 40 million TikTok followers or whatever. So I think the whole democratization of access to music IP in the way, we think about remuneration is changing, not just on the creative side and the production and who actually made the music, but also who helped me earn money from it, who actually helped me get 100 million streams and so on. And there's no reason why, radio promoters get paid. So why not actually incorporate them, or even publicists get paid to promote my music, influencers get paid, now they can actually become participants in that. I think what we built is a pretty sophisticated data infrastructure, even behind original works, where we can actually see streams coming from a certain playlist. We know the playlist ID. We can identify that causality between that influencer actually put my song on a playlist, which generated 8 million streams, and now I know exactly where that came from. So I have source of stream, and I can actually attribute that right back to the smart contract. And I think that's really unique.
And Clayton, that actually makes me think of Audius a bunch with the way you guys have done remix contests and beat battles and sort of built in all these cool tools for creative interaction with, what artists are putting out. So it's like the line between artist and fan has really blurred to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's our belief that there's the relationship that fans have to artists is an extremely humane one, and one that has been kind of obscured from the current streaming environment. Fans want to have a relationship with their artists. That's why Billie Eilish sells out millions of tickets for her meet and greets, where she basically just stands there. That relationship is because she's able to, on the live side, dictate consumption experiences for her fans in ways that are expressive of the things that she believes are important, the things that inform her music, the feelings that she had when she was writing this music. But the consumption experience digitally is extremely flat and transactional, and only really benefits Spotify. So we think that there's, if given the opportunity to not only compensate their favorite artists more, but also to interact with them in different ways, it doesn't become necessary to make a top 40 banger to be able to pay your bills, which is the current paradigm right now. It's like either you're on today's top hits, you're on Rap Caviar, you're on Mint, or your music essentially doesn't exist on Spotify. It's not to say that there's people that don't want to listen to it. It's just that the incentive around discovery for Spotify is not such that these smaller interactions and smaller proclivities of fan bases that are maybe very intense, but also smaller, or also like a little bit more bespoke. They're not incentivized to kind of build in those behaviors and actions. So we have no interest in having Taylor Swift, or obviously it'd be great if Taylor Swift or Drake were on the platform, but it's more my ambition to have like 100,000 people making $5,000 a month for music that otherwise would just essentially go unheard. And then you can begin to layer in all kinds of other interactions. And if you're able to do that, if you're secure in the ability to generate, a living wage for making music that is textured, is nuanced, is potentially politically poignant or sociologically beneficial, if you can still pay your bills and do those kinds of things, then we start hearing a lot more diversity in the way that people create music. And that's at the end of the day, like, music is as personal as the people that are creating it. And so I think that the future looks like a bunch of very, very, I think labels become playlists. I think artists become curators, and I think that all of them will be fans. And I think given the opportunity to pay more for stream music, I think it's just insane that we've all been convinced that all the music in the world is worth $12 a month, when I can make a song on GarageBand tonight, put it on Spotify by the end of next week, and then somebody that creates an orchestra, like an orchestral piece in Siberia, takes a year to compose it and then records it with a 100-piece orchestra. Those two pieces of content are streamed at the same rate, and that's just, pardon my French, that's bullshit. Like, that's not why people create, and that's not why people listen. So given the opportunity to buy in at higher levels and have it more of a spectrum of revenue streams coming in for different behaviors, that we think is something that people are going to really enjoy and opt into.
I love that idea of diversity and value being assigned by the listeners. They may not all want the same thing, right? And there may be communities that are specifically served by certain kinds of music that's playing a real particular role for them. That may not, ever be a Tay-Tay or, BTS level hit. So that is awesome. Thank you, Clayton. So Fabian, how do you imagine either creation and or listening, or whatever weird merger of the two we're about to experience, happening in the future, thanks to this technology?
Look, I think as the technology progresses, the ability to be able to really hone in on the fans and who's really listening around the world, and being able to directly target, hey, I'm releasing, Depeche Mode's releasing a new single, and we're going to target people born in the 1980s that live in urban environments, and give them early access to a song through the use of the technology. That type of stuff is coming, and to be able to reward early listeners, be it through stable coins, cryptos, NFTs, and all those types of things, that stuff is coming. I think we're really at the, as much as it's been evolving over the last 10 years, there's a lot of new features that are going to be starting to show up in terms of how this actually works. Granted, so much of our focus over the last few years has been getting people paid properly and on time, and making sure the technology works. And there's really just a handful of platforms that are rolling out and focusing on that very specific problem that's been a problem for a really long time, getting people paid. And then the added piece is like, oh, we're going to go on tour, but my guitar player didn't write any of the song, but for 3 months I'll give him a piece of the royalty since I'm going to take him on tour, because that's going to boost the streamings of the streaming royalties. So we can build that. I can say I'm going to give away 20% of my royalties for 3 months to Amnesty International. We can do that, and you can put money directly into the wallets of all a variety of participants. If a parent wanted to say, I wrote these songs and I'm going to put 5% of that going directly into this wallet for my child's college fund, that could be done. And these are things that didn't exist before. And the use of smart contracts, the underlying technology of blockchain, the evolution of where blockchain is going to allow for a lot of these things to start taking place. And I'm really excited about that. I think, and just one other thing to add is with all the work that's happening within royalties and songs, running parallel to this is everything that's happening within ticket sales. Eventually this technology and the platforms will start rolling out that'll be able to solve the issues around scalpers. And when tickets show up over on StubHub, and for that ticket to say, all right, the ticket's now on StubHub, who makes the money right now? Generally only the reseller. But the future and the evolution of a smart contract or a smart ticket will allow for the monies of that ticket to be distributed to the promoter, to the artist, to the venue, and those types of functionalities around, again, what does a digital asset do? How's money distributed for that digital asset? All that stuff is coming, and it's really freaking cool.
That is really cool. I'm particularly excited by the sort of game-like aspects of some NFTs, so generative NFTs. So those are NFTs that you can alter or change, or that can respond to an environment or do all sorts of cool things. So there's a lot of creativity that's just now getting unlocked. So, all right.
Tiffany Hill is who I want to start with. Tiffany asked the first question, and then I'm assuming she, and I apologize if that's misgendering, had another question. So I'm going to read both of them. Tiffany is a Washington University alumna. And Tiffany asks, you might have already answered this, but have many platforms signed on to implement this? What is the timeline? When will we begin to see this? And also ask if we're interested in investing in this or becoming a stakeholder in some way. How do we go about that?
In which was that addressed to?
I think the stakeholder question could apply to Audius or Relevator, but I think that sounds, Tiffany, like some of your question was related to the Relevator platform and how many artists are using it. Is that correct? You can let us know in the chat. Why don't we talk first about how people could get involved in in your projects, if they're musicians or music fans? Do you want to start, Clayton? Because I think you've got the simplest answer.
Sure, yeah. The best way to start earning audio, which represents, again, ownership of the Audius platform, is to upload music and share it on social media. If you hit top 5 trending on either the underground or trending playlists, you'll earn 100 audio per week. And also, if you don't make music, you can just curate a playlist that will also trend if you promote it, well, ideally in a perfect world. But trending playlists also earn 100 audio at the end of every week. So that is the simplest way to be involved. Audius is always free to use, by the way, for both artists and listeners.
And Bruno, if an artist or say a small label wants to connect to original works and the Relevator platform, how does that work?
So the original works wallet is available. You can just go to the app store and download it. It's a non-custodial wallet, so you got to manage your private keys. You got to make sure you save your private keys. Otherwise, if you lose your keys, you lose your wallet and everything that's inside. And obviously, there you can just creating assets, start creating smart contracts, sharing contracts with whoever other contributors, collaborators you work with. Then, if you have a Relevator account, you connect your copyrights or recordings to those. To the blockchain by just scanning a QR code from your wallet and recording that song on chain, and then obviously assigning rights to the collaborators you work with, and now you've got a tokenized asset on chain. Obviously, if you distribute through Relevator or through any of Relevator's partners that we work with, we work mostly with record labels, artist managers, and distributors around the world. And any of the revenue stream that comes through the platform can be paid directly to the smart contract that you've registered.
Anyone else, or can we move on to?
Sure, I could also just chime in on that.
Yeah,
and just,
please do.
Please.
Sorry.
In what Surround is doing, they could easily just go to surround.com as it is, just surround.com, sign up for the email list, and then you'll get information for when the platform launches next year.
Okay, great. We have two questions from Maya Eden. And Maya is a music industry student, and Maya is based in Minneapolis or Minnesota. I think Minnesota, if not Minneapolis. So Maya also had two questions. For people who are new to blockchain, crypto, etc., what would be a great first step to entering the world of it all? That won't be too overwhelming. Let's start there, and I'll read the second question if we have time.
I would say download a wallet. First, learn how to manage keys and manage assets. Buy or sell NFTs or whatever digital asset excites you.
I personally I direct people to YouTube. There's so much information on YouTube about all of this, from beginners to extremely, extremely deep dives on DeFi, like side chains, all kinds of different, anything that you want to know, it's there on YouTube. So if you literally just put in blockchain music beginners, like you'll have no shortage of stuff to watch.
Clayton, is there a particular channel or person you think has particularly good info? Just because there's YouTube can be a hit or miss thing. Okay,
yeah, not really. I would go with the views. Look at views and reviews. But they're all just saying the same thing, in varying degrees of simplicity. But I would also highly encourage you to pick up the book, The Infinite Machine. It's not totally well regarded in the crypto industry. I think it's a little bit junior for most people, and also people in crypto are just kind of funny and mean. But it's a really, really light, easy, and informative read about the origin of Ethereum and smart contracts generally. And it's a quick read. It's a weekend book, but I also believe it will be a movie or television show in the near future. But for somebody that's not wanting to dive into white papers, which I don't suggest doing until you've at least done some exploratory stuff, it's a really, really good first step.
I usually tell my friends to start by just going to Coinbase and buying something with $100 and just playing with it, watching it rise up and down in value, and then going from there into Binance or OpenSea to buy an NFT. But I think ultimately all of us that are working in our respective companies are creating technologies that will allow for the blockchain to be in the background. When we're working on emails or using websites, we don't see what the underlying information is or the code, or having to be very technologically proficient. You just use it and you fill in the blanks and you push send, and it does the work that it's supposed to do. And ultimately, if we all do our jobs really well, all of the blockchain aspects of our platforms will fall into the background. And I think that's what a lot of us are working towards.
I think that is absolutely the number one most important aspect here. And it's one that we've been really focused on since founding Audius. We actually spent a good 8 months developing a wallet that my mom can use. And most people don't even know they have one on Audius. I would say in polling, it's just based on user behavior. There's a dashboard that you can explore, including the ability to buy or to sell, trade, and accept the audio token or any ERC20 token on the back end. I'd say 98% of our 6.2 million users haven't even clicked through to that. So, and many of them, I was on a call the other day. We did what's called an airdrop, where we give away a large stake of the tokens to active users. I was on a call today with a dude who had 54,000 audio tokens in his account and didn't know it. So I would say that. What's that?
What is that worth?
It's worth nothing. It's worth nothing. However, you can go and look at a
CoinGecko. Yeah, it's a valueless governance token. But he was excited to find that out, and now he has the ability to unlock certain other features. So I would say that Audius is, again, free to use. Audius.co/signup, and you will be actually using a blockchain without knowing it.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
And the reason there's an interesting gray area that has yet to be completely understood by government regulators, and that's why sometimes people don't want to talk about exactly how much something is worth in U.S. dollars, et cetera, because things are still getting worked out. Let's put it that way. Is that a fair assessment, Clayton?
I wouldn't say they're getting worked out. They're just getting talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then something China, but yeah.
There's a lot going
that's
on.
a different that's a different conversation, but it is one that is important to understand. Is that like this is so new that your parents probably don't. Maybe they do, but like your parents, let alone the people that are tasked with in the government with essentially governing and regulating a $1 trillion industry, literally don't know what you now know. Like most of them haven't even done the amount of research that we've provided for you in the last hour. So just something to keep in mind. It's called in the industry. It's called FUD. Fear. What is it? Fear, uncertainty.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
And doubt, which is profound and prolific in crypto. But it's at the root of it. It's just people are afraid of what they don't understand. And at the end of the day, this technology was created to make people's lives better.
All right.
Should we squeeze one more in for just another minute?
Sure, let's go for it.
This again from Maya that asked the last question that I read. Spotify is known to pay hardly anything to artists. In your opinion, is there a different platform that artists should be looking into to focus their work on?
Clayton?
That I highly suggest that any artist that you know, or if you're an artist yourself, please, by all means, start exploring Audius. There's public information about how we plan to compensate people, but long story short, TLDR is 90% of the revenue that comes to the Audius platform will go to the creators, 10% will go to the people that host and maintain the network, and Audius keeps nothing. Audius is not a business. We don't make money, and hence our only incentive is to create a great user experience for the people that create value on the platform, which is the artists and the curators and their teams. I think it's important to keep in mind that SoundCloud became an $800 million company because we gave it free content, and they turned around and sold it to Liberty Media in Denver, who is rapidly gaining market share in terms of years by acquisitions of Sirius, Live Nation, and Pandora. That can never happen with Audius because again, we are not incentivized to make money. We're incentivized to drive value towards people that hold the token.
Well, that was a great discussion, everybody. We're out of time, but let's give a round of applause to our experts on this session. Thank you so much for making time, and thank you everyone for coming to participate or watch this discussion.